So as we were just gathering, we were all talking about what's been going on in Ukraine this week, and it's been a really rough week since we last met. And it would be a mistake not to acknowledge that. And it's been a rough week on multiple fronts. So we're going to spend just a couple of minutes settling and getting here and letting go of the getting here physically and letting go of the getting here mentally. So let's take a few breaths. And as has been my practice ever since his passing, I will share this little piece from Thich Nhat Hanh. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. So we'll breathe in and calm our bodies. And we'll breathe out and we'll smile. And we'll arrive here at this moment. So welcome. Today is March 1st. And I'd like to think that the worst of winter is behind us. And I've been noticing signs of spring as I've been walking around. There were some daffodils whose yellow heads were popping up and smiling at me yesterday. And the sun feels just a wee bit warmer when it's out. And that's a really good reminder that everything is in motion and that change is our constant companion. So this week's Parsha is Pekudai. I'm concerned that I'm not saying that properly. And maybe later somebody will correct me. And in the Parsha, we have the completion of the building of the Mishkan. And the Parsha starts with a full kind of accounting, taking an inventory of everything that was brought and a review of all the adornments and within the Mishkan and of the vestments for the high priests. It's all being kind of recapped. And then the very end of the Parsha is the actual completion of putting all the pieces parts together to build the Mishkan. The other thing that's significant about this Parsha is that it's the last Parsha in the book of Exodus. So as is often the case, this portion reminded me of a few things that I think are kind of important that I'd like to lift up for us. So the first thing is the accounting, this inventory taking. So we often take inventory of what we have in the pantry when we're making a shopping list. We take inventory of things that are tangible. We also can take inventory of intangible. I can take an inventory of how I'm living my life, an accounting, and ask the question, am I living up to the way I aspire to be? What else can I do to be my best self? So that's another kind of accounting and inventory taking. Another piece of this Parsha and it's been a thread through the last several, has been that everybody brought something to contribute. So some people brought goods for the building of the Mishkan. And so some people brought gemstones and precious metals. And some people didn't have gemstones and precious metals to bring, but they were able to bring things that could be tent pegs. So some of the offerings were very modest, and some of them were not so modest, were pretty grand. Some people brought offerings of themselves, their sweat equity, if you will. The lesson that seems really powerful to me is that when the Mishkan was put together, the most precious gemstones were no more important than the tent peg. Everybody's contribution mattered, and mattered in the same way because everyone contributed. The sum is greater than the parts. So for me, the lesson here, just which is so powerful, and as I said, it's been kind of reiterated over the last 3 or 4 weeks, is that whatever your personal gifts are, you need to value them and you need to share them. That's how we are part of a community, and that's how communities stay strong. So it's that connection among the people that becomes so really critical. And then the other thing is, last thing about this Torah portion that really strikes me is the fact that it is the last parsha of the book of Exodus. So Exodus started with the Israelites being slaves in Egypt under Pharaoh's thumb, if you will. And the book ends with the Israelites as a free people on a journey where they're really not clear where they're going, but they're journeying with the divine, and they have faith that they're going to be led to wherever it is that they need to go. So for me, this kind of lifts up that whole notion of things are constantly changing, and that having faith in the process is really helpful, but it's not the only thing. You can't just have faith and sit back and just wait for things to happen. It takes a lot of hard work too, a lot of effort for things to happen. So that this business of tuning into where am I supposed to put my foot down for the next step is really important. And then have faith that where I've chosen to put my foot down is the right place. So I'm finding all of this, kind of stirs me up and has me very reflective of the whole sequence of events in the Torah over the last several weeks of building the Mishkan, and how we've talked about that. And this notion of having the Mishkan inside us it just seems to be pretty continually reinforced for me. And the other piece that is being continually reinforced for me is this notion of how we can use our breath. So we talked a few weeks ago about using the breath as a way to keep that spark inside us glowing and sharing that spark, that light. But we've also talked about how we can use that breath as a way of enlivening, if you will, Shabbat moments. So one of the themes over the course of the last several weeks has been the centrality of Shabbat, that you can't have work without having ceasing from work. Well, maybe you can have work. You could work all the time, but then you would keel over, right? So that wouldn't be very useful. So you need the balance. And we've talked about how taking that breath not only slows us down enough so that there's a little space between the stimulus and the response so that we don't blow our tops when our people build a golden calf, as an example. But there's also that use of that breath to give us that Shabbat moment, that moment of rest, the pause that refreshes. So as we sit today, I would like us to really be paying attention to our breath and how we use our breath in so many ways. We can use our breath to calm us, and we can use our breath to build up our energy. There are all different kinds of breathing techniques. We can use our breath to give us that pause so that we can be responsive to whatever is happening rather than reactive. So let's take our positions. We'll sit in a comfortable, relaxed yet alert position. And really bring your shoulders back so that you're as broad across the chest as you can be. So you have as much lung space as is available to you. And I encourage you to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And breathing in this way allows us to open our mouths just a little bit so we can drop our jaw. So many of us hold tension right here in the jaw. So if we breathe in and then open the mouth and breathe out, that often is really helpful. If you find it helpful, that's great. If you find that it's not helpful and you don't like it, don't do it. That's just fine too. And you may notice that as you breathe in, your chest expands. And as you exhale, the chest kind of falls back a little bit. And does that also happen with your belly? When you breathe in really fully to the lower portion of your lungs, your belly is going to expand. So it's as though you're breathing into your belly. So as you breathe deeply, you'll notice that your body is not still when you breathe. This is a good thing. We breathe with our whole body. We don't want to be rigid. We want that fluidity. So I invite you to really pay attention to what is happening in your body as you're breathing deeply and fully and exhaling deeply and fully. So I invite you to begin to bring your attention outward. And as you slowly and gently come back to the room, going to read a passage about Shabbat from Rabbi Rami Shapiro's book, Minyan. Rest reveals the importance of work. Work reveals the importance of rest. The two together make the world. The two together make a human being. I rest when I cease my struggle to control. I rest when I abandon my pride of ownership. I rest when I give thanks for what is. I set aside these moments to reveal in your work by sharing your rest. I set aside these moments for mindfulness and renewal. I set aside these moments to review my mission and my priorities. I set aside these moments to honor all that I have been given. I set aside these moments to take stock of all that I am. I take this time to make Sabbath, to set aside the labors that define me and uncover the me that cannot be defined, to find in the quiet friends and counselors urging me to wholeness, to find in these hours rest and renewal, and to open my heart to joy and my mind to truth. So with that, I am going to turn off the recording.